Listen to a teacher talking in a history class.
The Silk Road is a name given to the many trade routes that connected Europe and the Mediterranean with the Asian world. The route is over 6,500 kilometers long and got its name because the early Chinese traded silk along it. Although silk was the main trading item, there were many other goods that traveled along the Silk Road between Eastern Asia and Europe. In the course of time, medicine, perfumes, spices, and livestock found their way between continents. The Chinese learned to make silk thousands of years ago. For a long time, they were the only ones who knew how to make this precious material. Only the emperor, his family, and his highest advisors were allowed to wear clothes made of silk. For a long time, the Chinese guarded this secret very carefully. The ancient Romans were the first Europeans who became aware of this wonderful material. Trading started often with Indians as middlemen, who traded silk with the Chinese in exchange for gold and silver, which they got from the Romans. Traveling along the route was dangerous. The hot desert, high mountains, and sandstorms made traveling a rough business. Most of the goods along the Silk Road were carried by caravans. Traders sometimes brought goods from one destination on the Silk Road to another, from where the goods would be transported by someone else. Over the centuries, people settled along the ancient route, and many cities emerged. Later on, there were fewer hardships to overcome, but by no means was it easy. Religion, languages, and diseases also spread along the Silk Road. Buddhism, which originated in India, spread to China along this route. European traders probably brought the plague from Asia to Europe along the ancient road.
Now, answer the question.
Now you will hear part of a radio program.
Dr. Ashley, can tumor cells get passed to another person through blood contact? For example, from blood donations or used needles, and can cancer be transmitted from the mother to an unborn child while in the womb?
Well, cancer spreading from one individual to another via blood is very unlikely. When cancer in one part of the body spreads to another part of the body, the outlook for a patient is rarely positive. Given how frequently this happens, it may come as a surprise to know that the spread of cancer from one person to another is actually incredibly rare.
You mean generally? In well people who are not immune suppressed, getting cancer from one individual to another via blood is very unlikely, right?
Yeah, several large studies have been conducted to specifically examine this question. One study looked at about 1/3 of a million blood recipients, of which about 12,000 were at risk of blood being transfused from a donor with subclinical cancer, and they found no increase in risk. This evidence fits with what we know about how the immune system responds to foreign matter. In the case of blood transfusion, blood types such as AB, and O is carefully matched between the donor and recipient, so the recipient's immune system doesn't see the red blood cells as foreign and destroy the red blood cells. If there are cancer cells in that blood, there are other unique proteins on the surface of those cells that in the majority of cases mark them out as foreign. The recipient's immune system therefore identifies them and destroys them before they can settle in.
I see what you mean. Thanks.
Now answer the questions.
In my presentation, I'm going to summarise what I've found out about efforts to save one plant species, the juniper bush. It once flourished in Britain and throughout the world's temperate zones, but over the last few decades has declined considerably. Before I go on to explain the steps being taken to save it in England, let me start by looking at some background information and why the juniper has been so important in cultural as well as ecological terms, historically and in the present day. Firstly, I want to emphasise the fact that juniper is a very ancient plant. It has been discovered that it was actually amongst the first species of plants to establish itself in Britain in the period following the most recent Ice Age. And, as I say, it has a much valued place in British culture. It was used widely as a fuel during the Middle Ages because when burnt, the smoke given off is all but invisible, and so any illicit activities involving fire could go on without being detected. For example, cooking game hunted illegally. It also has valuable medicinal properties. Particularly during large epidemics, oils were extracted from the juniper wood and sprayed in the air to try to prevent the spread of infection in hospital wards. And these days, perhaps its most well-known use is in cuisine, cooking, where its berries are a much valued ingredient, used to flavour a variety of meat dishes and also drinks. Turning now to ecological issues, juniper bushes play an important role in supporting other living things. If juniper bushes are wiped out, this would radically affect many different insect and also fungus species. We simply cannot afford to let this species die out. So, why is the juniper plant declining at such a rapid rate? Well, a survey conducted in the north and west of Britain in 2004-5 showed that a major problem is the fact that in present-day populations, ratios between the sexes are unbalanced, and without a proper mix of male and female, bushes don't get pollinated. Also, the survey found that in a lot of these populations, the plants are the same age, so this means that bushes grow old and start to die at similar times, leading to swift extinction of whole populations. Now, the charity Plant Life is trying to do something to halt the decline in juniper species. It's currently trying out 2 new major salvage techniques, this time focusing on lowland regions of England. The first thing it's trying is to provide shelters for the seedlings in areas where juniper populations are fairly well established. These, of course, are designed to help protect the plants at their most vulnerable stage. A further measure is that in areas where colonies have all but died out, numbers are being bolstered by the planting of cuttings which have been taken from healthy bushes elsewhere. Now, I hope I've given a clear picture of the problems facing this culturally and ecologically valuable plant, and of the measures being taken by Plant Life to tackle them. If anyone has any questions, I'd be happy to...